Welcome in, everybody, to another Tee to Green Extra. Thanks for joining us here. Brian Koziel, Kevin Sylvester there doing his best.
I'm making the extra.
The X for the extra. I thought it was some WWE signal that, from your wrestling days, Kevin.
Well, you know what's cool? I'm glad you brought that up. And this is this is a beautiful thing about extra. Like, we have a plan, there's something we were talking about extra, but now that you brought up WWE, for those who follow me on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook, which is everybody. I mean, why wouldn't you follow?
Who doesn't? Right.
Right, exactly. You're missing out on just unbelievable content. But Todd Brody, who is the production director at Intercom Buffalo, and he sent me a picture, and I've coveted this picture. I remember we took this picture from an interview when Bob Gaughan and I used to host a morning show on GR, which is, oh my gosh, you know how many Harvest Moons ago that was? So many. But we had Roddy Piper on the show, and it was my favorite interview I've ever done with anybody, in person, radio, television, and I've interviewed a lot of people. Well, listen to me, I sound like Trump. Anyhow, Roddy Piper was my favorite interview ever. We spent an hour with us in studio. You know, grew up watching Piper's Pit, Hulk Hogan, all those guys, the Hot Rod. I mean, he was the best. And we took some photos, but this is, so long ago, it's not, we didn't have, maybe they're on flip phones, but they were taken with a camera. And like the disposable camera by maybe Stephanie, was the promotions director at the time, took the photos and never saw the photos. Well, I think Todd, someone was going through photos, stack on his desk, and he texts me picture, sends me a text with this photo there, me and Roddy Piper. And I'm like, holy crap, where did you find this? And he's like, a stack of photos. I've been with Roddy and Bob. And so I posted to me. I was so excited to have this photo of Roddy Piper. And if you saw the photo, it's not completely in focus, but the grin on my face, it's like I got a new bike at Christmas as an 8-year-old, right? It was just incredible. I was so thrilled to be there with Roddy Piper. And I remember this from the interview. He, when we were done, and I put this out there, but I'll tell a quick story. We were done. Bobby Gaughan kept saying, "Hey, Roddy, give me a chop, like a chop in the ring." Or, those reels like, no, Bobby. You don't want me to. Bobby, don't. And all of a sudden he just goes, whack, backhands him in the chest. And I just heard, and this big thump. And Bob goes, "Yep, that's real. That hurts." And he goes, I told you, Bob. You didn't want to happen. But Roddy Piper. So that a little wrestling.
Yes, I saw that picture. It was good. I could, and you were grinning ear to ear. I think Rowdy would definitely be in my top 5 wrestler, like my favorite wrestlers of all time. I think my favorite growing up was always Ultimate Warrior. I think I loved his colorful outfit, the way he would just sprint down when he got introduced. He would just fly down and then, jump right into the ring and then start going crazy on and then he would shake the ring going up and down with the ropes on the side.
We did another wrestling thing with Bobby. We had Puff. They did one of those ballpark brawls down at the
yes.
Pilot Field, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And we got asked if we want to be part of it. And we're like, are you kidding? Yes, we want to be part of it. So we had a match. So they had minor league wrestlers, if you will, paired with Jimmy Hart, the Mouth of the South, right? Was paired with that. And so we were managing. Puff was going to be our wrestler, Gary Puffpath, who's a very big guy. And Bob and I were going to be managers. So we connect with Jimmy Hart on the phone. This thing was happening Saturday. I said, why don't you come to the hotel and we'll go through everything. I'm like, go through everything. So we're sitting at the Homewood Suites on Dick Road in Cheektowaga, hanging out with Jimmy Hart at like 10 p.m. on a Friday night, choreographing the match. And sorry to ruin it for anybody. We're choreographing the match. And Jimmy Hart goes, all right, which one of you guys wants to hit me with a chair? I'm like, my hand immediately goes up. He goes, all right, you're gonna come in the ring and you're gonna hit me over the back with a chair. And I'm like, really? He goes, I'll show you how to do it tomorrow. Not a problem. It's really easy to do. So we go to the locker room in the arena, which is on this room. And the first guy I see walking in there is, why can't I think of his name? The guy, Hacksaw Jim Duggan. First guy I see sitting there. Yes. Oh, he had the lumber, I'm looking, I'm like, holy smokes, that's Hacksaw Jim Duggan.
Yeah.
And so Jimmy shows us how to do it, and I got to hit Jimmy Hart, the mouth of the South, in the back with a chair in the ring. It was awesome.
Good stuff.
All those names except for Hulk Hogan mean nothing to me.
Oh.
Maybe Roddy Piper. I never watched it, never cared, never had an interest, not
Really?
1 minute. Never even, saw it, highlights on on the ads, and that's about it.
You missed out, Jeff.
Apparently I did. I was outside playing when you guys were doing that, I think. So, yeah.
Spit my coffee out there.
Yeah. I didn't watch it probably for a good decade or so, and then I got back into it, and now I don't watch it as much. I know it's just as popular as it ever is.
Oh, yeah.
But,
they're still doing it in Florida. Yeah, they made it an essential business.
No, they just
did they take it back off?
They just suspended operations, I saw. I think they laid everybody off and realized, after WrestleMania, that didn't play so well. I'm up. You guys didn't tell me we were wearing PGA Hope hats today. I would have put mine on instead of my Callaway hat here. So you're both in uniform. But, Brian, I don't know about you. I'm jealous of Jeff's sporting there, the custom turf pullover.
Yeah.
Very
it's
nice.
It's a Donald Ross, too.
It's a Donald Ross custom turf. Steve Beatty, if you're watching.
Yep.
That's all.
Yeah, I'll take one of those. I don't mind wearing it.
Of course, I'm trying to think, did we give Steve a TD Green pullover? So we probably got to reciprocate.
That's
somehow.
true. We should probably do that.
You might want to do that soon. Yeah.
I've spent a ton of time since we're at home on my backyard custom turf putting green, which has been great. My son and I develop like essentially we make up a new game while we're out there all the time of, you got to putt around this hole to go to this hole, or you got to chip over this hole and then putt to that hole. And we've even had like little relays and stuff like that, but it's, I think it's great practice for him, especially developing touch. Well, it should be for me too. Obviously I need the help as much as anybody, but just making up those games. Him and I have been out there. It's been a lot of fun.
So, Brian, you're a teacher, and when you're being creative like that, that's when people learn the most. So that, you talk about Seve Ballesteros and all the good players. I always say it's not the kids that grew up at country clubs that were always the best players. It was the kids who just loved the game like your son's doing and getting creative, and that's how you'll learn. Like one of my favorite drills there would be the ladder drill, where you try to hit it an inch past the last shot, an inch past as close as you can, or get as many balls, and then do it the opposite way. Short, how many can you get on the green while hitting the next shot shorter than the one you hit before? How high can you hit it? How low can you hit it? Can you do it with a 7-iron? Could you do it with a lob wedge? All those things are what make good players good and get you creative and get you comfortable around the green.
That's all good until, his kid blades one through the window.
We actually have we've had that discussion because it is up against part of the house where there is 2 windows, and he was chipping and taking like full practice swings. I was like, listen, from that side, you can't do it from there. He's like, let's
aim away from the house.
Chip away from the house. That's right.
Was it the Duster warm up a couple years ago? Dylan. Oh no, it's just before. I think it was before PGA Junior League.
Yes, the car. He almost hit the car. I remember that your face.
My kid, I love him, and he is. I don't think he knows his own strength sometimes. He took a full swing with a wedge, right before practice. It was before practice for PGA Junior League, right,
yeah,
Brian?
On the putting green area, yeah.
And he's towards.
He is not the first kid to do that.
Well, yeah, but he's towards that upper parking lot at Fox.
Yeah, we were at Fox Valley, and he was facing the parking lot area. And if you don't know Fox Valley, there's a parking lot area that's very close to the putting green area.
And just flushes one. I mean,
and my daughter did the same thing when she was about 8. She bladed one, and it hit our buddy Tim Buckner in the head, who was teaching the junior golf clinic that day.
Well, that explains Tim, right?
Yeah.
Yes, it does. Yeah.
Sorry,
that's what I call him, Buckner. Yeah. But.
Brian, have you had a chance? Did you get a chance before the shutdown? Which, by the way, I don't know if you guys signed that change.org petition. I did too. I don't know if it was worth a damn or what, but I know there's over 16,000 New Yorkers who signed that to get our golf courses back open. They should be open, frankly, with all the things that are open. The things that could be. There's a lot of things I believe that could be open. Some people acted irresponsibly. Some facilities acted irresponsibly. I say that with confidence. I won't name them, but there's one place that I had 3 people reach out to me in direct messages on Twitter, chronicling what occurred. And another one that I heard from another person in our industry said occurred. And I just, there's blame to go on both sides with it, and lesson learned, hopefully. But prior to being shut down, did you get a chance to play your new Callaways?
I did not. You handed them to me.
I didn't hand them to you. Let's be clear.
That's true. You had them in your middle of the driveway, and then yes. I grabbed them safely. No, I didn't get a chance to. They have been taunting me every single time that I put something in the recycling bin in the garage. They're right next to it, just waiting to be used. They look spectacular. I'm really excited about it. When we did that fitting session with Taylor from Callaway at Woods to Wedges, I learned quite a bit, and I thought I hit my irons at a higher flight, which we were looking to do, and the driver was getting numbers that I was like, wow, this is going to be great. And I'm just hoping that we'll get the golf courses open soon so I can get out there and try them. I know you got at least played one round with him, right? I don't know if you played
two. I played 2 rounds with him, actually, because one of them I played
maybe 3.
No, I played 4 rounds in total. I played 2 with the new sticks because actually when I got him, I played with Taylor, who, by the way, can just smash it. Number 9 at Lancaster, he drove it to the base of the hill with a hybrid. It was disgusting, young guy. And interesting with the driver, Jeff. I want to ask you about this. We talk about carry distance, right? So even when we were getting fitted, I'm like, well, let's dial it down because I had a very high ball, high spin. But so when I took it out of the wrapper, I didn't change it, 9 degree. And the carry distance is awesome. It's all carry. I'm not getting any release when it lands, which if I can get on a range, I might dial it down to 8 degree, but the carry distance, I'm right there. I'm where I need to be. So I'm thinking, I don't want to mess with it.
You might not be getting released because of the time of year. The reason you wouldn't get released, carry is far more important than roll all the time. What you want to check for is your downrange angle when it's landing. If you want it coming down about 30 degrees, is your ball dropping straight out of the air? Like, is it going out and then dropping straight down? Is that why it's not getting any roll?
It could be conditions could be part of it. I mean, it's coming in and it's backing up, right? So it's making a mark in the fairway and it backs up just a tinge.
I would guess that's probably condition based. You do want to check, you look at your downrange angle of the golf ball, and that's either a golf ball fitting or a shaft fitting thing. Sometimes you can change the golf ball because the golf balls will come down at different trajectories. That's how they do certain things with the aerodynamics of the golf ball. You just don't want it to drop straight out of the air. You don't want it coming down 90 degrees when it lands. You want to have it have a nice parabolic arc when it lands, so you maximize carry and roll.
Right.
And that's how you hit it the furthest.
I've got to say, like.
But you said you hit it high with high spin, right?
Yes, yeah. For example, the Cobra F9, which I was playing last year, I have it at. I can go look. I can have it at 8 degree. I'd hit it a lower ball flight, which I like better to my eye, but I'd get released to it. With this Callaway Maverick, it's just carrying so far in the conditions. It carried just as far or further than my hit and roll with the Cobra, which is a great club. I was just blown away. Like, wow, I'm loving the carry distance I'm getting here with this. So he fitted me well, and it's performing well.
Yeah, and I guess I never look at the number on the bottom of the club, the 8.5 or 9 degrees. That's almost immaterial. That's a starting point when you're getting fitted, and the shaft and the ball and all those other factors are going to be more determinant. People say, well, between brands, like an 8.5 or 9, it's apples and oranges, because you can take a 9 degree driver, put a low kick point shaft in it, put a high spinning ball on the guy, and he's going to launch it way up in the air. And you could do that same driver, put it up to a higher loft and put a stiffer shaft and a different ball, and you're going to get a totally different characteristic. And it's also based on the player. So you can't really focus on that number on the bottom. use the ball and how it's flying as your judgment when you're doing that.
Jeff, I
Trump's
think
stuff, I used it was great.
yeah, I think that's a huge misconception about that the degree of the number on the bottom of the driver, because I can't believe how often that I've been just playing with just random people, and they'll always ask, "Oh, what's your degree of your driver?" Like they want to know that all the time, and I'm sure that you get asked that too at lessons, or when people are asking you about a driver club, like a club.
I don't know what I have. I'd have to look, to be honest, because it.
But don't you think don't you think though that that's a misconception? Like people want to ask that all the time about it?
Yeah, it's apples and oranges. The story I used to tell is Tim Freeze and I had the same club head speed. Tim's an awesome player, and but he had a 12-degree lofted driver, and a little longer. I had an 8.5 degree and a little shorter. But because we launched it and our impacts were so different, we needed much, much different equipment, even though our speed might have been exactly the same. So that's based on, that's why you can't fit statically when someone's just standing there. You never fit them for, the old school way. No one does it anymore, but you can't.
Here's a surprising thing to me, and even with the fitting, I think I said this to you, Brian, afterwards. And by the way, the fitting's on the YouTube channel. You can watch Brian's fitting. I may have made a cameo in there. But I mean, we had over an hour of footage that I think I pared down to like 19 minutes or something like that. The irons are the KBS 90 Tour shafts. They're graphite, which I was like, geez, I'm not as old as Jeff. I don't need graphite.
You're almost. Yeah.
You know what though? They're spot on. They're and they're not whippy.
That's another huge misconception about graphite shafts. Now, you see, every tour player is hitting a graphite shaft in their driver. There's not one tour player hitting steel shaft. Now, that's the club they swing the hardest at and create the most speed with, and they're using graphite for that. Now, you can have graphite. The nice thing about graphite is they're actually multi-material things, but you can configure it to do anything. Move the kick point up and down, the amount of torque, all the different factors that they can engineer into it. Graphite in irons is, you can get them at tour weight. You can get them at 120 grams or whatever. And what it does do for irons, it's a little more expensive. So people usually don't want to do it in their irons. And you're looking for weight in your irons to control the spin. So you wouldn't, graphite tends to be on the lighter end. So you have to get a specialized shaft to get it at tour weight. But what it does do is, if you have tendonitis or if you have bad elbows or you've got some repetitive motion problems, then you'd want to use graphite because it sends less vibration up the shaft and a little bit less irritation into your body.
Well, it was the right choice because oddly enough, I tweaked the elbow in the fitting. The second swing, I caught the turf and I could feel the ding in the ligament, golfer's elbow. Yep. And I've been playing with the Scotty McCarron. Well, no, he's a diabetic. No, who's a player?
He had that too, the tendonitis elbow. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So I've been playing with that, and it's been great. So I guess I'm showing my age there. Yeah. Oh well, happens to all of us at some point.
Yeah. I want to maybe we can finish up with this on our radio show on WGR. We finished the show talking about kind of just the mental golf psychology piece of the game, and I guess maybe I want to spend maybe just a few minutes here to finish up with that thought, Jeff. We have all struggled at times with the mental side of golf. There's no doubt about it. It can be the most exhilarating and frustrating thing all within a span of seconds of one another. Maybe you just want to kind of reset the tip that you gave for those that didn't hear it on the radio side. And then I want to ask you a few more follow-ups too about it.
Yeah, I think to me, it's such an important, it's what separates good players from, the guy on the range who has a beautiful swing, right? There's a lot of people that swing beautifully, but the really good players think the game differently, and they mentally approach the game differently. An NFL football player is approaching the game much differently than a college player would be approaching the game because it's his job. Same thing here. You have to, there's some great books out there about golf psychology. This would be a great time. You're sitting at home, get a book on tape, get any Bob Rotella book on golf psychology and read that. Golf is not a game of perfect is his first one. Golf is a game of confidence. He has a book about putting. I've always played better after I've read his books, and those things become part of who you are as a golfer. A pre-shot routine, the importance of a pre-shot routine in the mental aspect of the game, where you're just creating a routine job to do. I put my tee in the ground for the driver. It's always a flat lie. It's always the same thing. I always visualize success. I always take the same number of practice swings. It takes me the same amount of time over the ball. All those things are what good players are going to do. Poor players, they don't do the same thing over the ball each time. And even good players who have a routine, they may not think the game right. You know, they may not be able, as you were saying, be able to shake off a bad shot, you know, or take something from a bad round and learn from it, play better the next day because of it, and instead of going the other way. So I think the mental part of the game, you know, positivity, creativity, visualization, routine, all those things, even how you breathe between shots, you know, or in your routine, all affect good players. And you can, Kevin, you're right. You guys watch golf on TV. You can tell the player by his routine, by how he walks to the ball, by what he does before the ball. And the last thing I'll say is you'll notice good routines always have the player moving all the time. You never see static freezing up over the golf, or very seldom. And a very good player, do you see him freeze over the golf ball? Usually they're just constantly moving, and they're thinking about their target and how they're going to achieve hitting a good shot, where I think most players are thinking about how they're going to make a good swing. And I think that's where you start to see the line between good players and poor players. And that's where some mental training and some mental coaching and reading some golf book, and it's a practice like anything else. You have to practice it. And you will definitely separate yourself from other players who have equal skill.
I know I've got a couple of pre-shot routines now that if I don't do it, like it throws me because I'm just used to doing it, whether it's how I line up the logo of the ball on the tee shot, or how I line up the mark of the ball when I'm putting, like little things like that. Or even just how I'll walk into the ball. Like now I feel like, and Jeff, this just comes from listening to you now for a decade or more of just how important that is. So I'll credit you. Like you're in my head. Sometimes it's not good, but sometimes you're in my head in a good way with that routine of, how I approach my shot. And when I don't do it for whatever the reason is, maybe, I'm rushed for something, or I'm hitting a second ball or whatever, like it's apparent. I am consciously aware of it, which probably isn't then a good thing. Obviously, you're about to make a swing. You're trying not to overcomplicate it. And I'm aware of the fact that I'm not following my routine.
So you've lost confidence, and
yes.
you've lost that anchor that, a lot of good players too, a positive thought right before they hit the shot. When you think, I don't want to hit it right, guess what your mind hears? Right. So the last thing your mind hears, that's what it's thinking. How many times do you guys say, that's why you'll hear a tour player say, where's the miss here? The miss is left. You don't say, I don't want to miss it right. And I go, well, if I miss it, I want to miss it on the left. So your mind is thinking left. In worst case scenario, it hits that bad shot left instead of right. If you can follow that concept. So that's how the mind works in sports. And then there's, getting in the zone. How do you get in the zone? How it's so infrequent that you really get in that zone. But, sometimes you feel like you're just teetering on the edge of really playing good. And how do you break through? And then they always say, when you're in the zone, you're just glimpsing your potential. That's not you being hot. That's you reaching your potential.
I think there's that line of committing to your decision doesn't always necessarily mean you have to be like the physical and the mental thing don't always have to go together. You can be 100% confident and committed to a shot. Maybe it doesn't mean you're hitting it at 100% power, or, I don't know if I'm explaining that correctly.
Like picking a club.
Correct.
You committed to that 7-iron. If you're waffling and you're over it thinking, maybe I should hit the 7, you're almost never going to hit it good. Even if the 7's the wrong club, you're going to hit a better shot and you'll have better results, time and time again.
Yeah. And even if you're saying, look, I'm only going to hit a 75% power on this shot, or I'm only going to take it back halfway, but fully commit to whatever that plan is. That's definitely something that I know, I'm trying to do a better job at. Yeah.
And a target. I hear too many guys, where are you trying to hit this? At the pin. Well, how many times do you hear tour players say he's aiming right at the pin? No, he's always picking something out behind it or in front of it or to carry. There's always different targets instead of just, I'm going to aim it at the pin, right? That's a target, but you want to be a little more specific, and you also want to visualize what that shot will look like. You don't just hit it. You want, how high is it going to go? Is it going to hook? Is it going to fade? Is it going to stop? Is it going to roll? Is it what's it going to do? And visualization helps you realize that. Your coach, Brian, You know, you coach your tennis players, they can't see good shots. How are they going to hit good shots?
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
one of
we
the
talk
things
about.
that,
I'm sorry, Kev. I'll just jump in quick.
yeah.
We talk so much about routine, and I've borrowed it from golf, even over to tennis, about serving. You know, I don't want you thinking about the fact that you just double faulted. I want you to thinking about your routine. I don't want
Right.
you to think about that this is set point. I want you to think about the fact that, you know, whatever your pre-serve routine is, or whatever your return of serve routine is, that's what I want you thinking about. So you know, just as much as I feel like that's important in golf, and it carries over in other sports. I mean, we've watched the best players in Major League Baseball. They do their same routine in the batter's box, or the pitcher does the same thing before he's about to throw a pitch, or an NBA player before he's about to do a free throw or whatever. I mean, this carries over to all sports, no doubt.
Yeah.
One of the things I wanted to mention, a late friend of ours, Mark Pacer, when I used to play with him, and I remember we were in a match together or something, and I was debating like, I can hit like a 3/4 8 here, full 9, maybe. And I remember him saying to me, he's like, quit messing around with all that. Pick a club you could take a full normal swing with, and you can take a full shot with. Don't, confuse yourself with all these options. I'm a better player now, and sometimes I look at the options, but I often revert back to that where, all right, you know what? Why don't I just play the shot that I can take a full normal swing at with a club and get to my destination, get on the green, instead of trying to, piece something together that's not ideal and fully comfortable.
Because you were confident with that shot, and that was a comfortable shot for you. If you were more comfortable hitting a knockdown 8-iron, then that would have been the go-to shot for you. And when in between, that's we talk about committing to each shot. So the other phrase is, you have a conservative target with an aggressive mindset. So, I'm going to pick, 10 feet left, but I'm going to make a nice aggressive swing at it instead of a tentative swing or a less than confident swing where you kind of gork it up there, you kind of wish it up there, as opposed to putting. You see a lot. You see guys wish putts in instead of trying to knock them in. They'll just kind of goose it up there without much. They're trying not to screw up instead of trying to make it. If that makes sense. Yeah,
absolutely.
I told my kid we're having wish sandwiches for lunch. By the way, you know what a wish sandwich is?
I wish I had some meat. I wish I had some bread.
There you go.
Yes.
2 pieces of bread. You can.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway. Sorry.
I grew up in the Depression. Yeah.
I know. For those, look at all this preparation for our Tee to Green radio show here. Anyway, I wrote down a question that I didn't get to on our radio show on WGR. So let's finish with this if you're okay for another minute or two. We talked about the revamped schedule, and I was asked this on Twitter, and I went back and forth thinking about how to reply. Do you think let's pretend that the schedule does go ahead and go forward. We said that the June 11th, the Colonial event at Colonial is going to be the first event coming back. Do you think we will see more of the big name golfers play in these events right away? Or do you think they will wait and see how it plays out first in terms of just the travel logistics, the setup, all that sort of stuff? Or do you think is everybody going to be all in right away, Kev, right away here on this? Hey, I can get at an event. I'm going to get in there and go. Like for the Brooks Koepkas and the Dustin Johnsons and the Tiger's a different issue because we know that could be injury related. But assuming healthy big name players, the Fowlers, the Justin Thomases, are they going? Are we going to see all these names at Colonial at the first event, or do you think some of these guys that aren't necessarily needing either points for their card or money? Let's face it, for these guys, they don't need it. These big names. Or do you think they'll kind of take a wait and see approach before they commit to an event?
Great question. I think, boy, that's a great question. I think it'll be mixed. I think you'll see some guys who may not play because they want to see how it works and maybe not take the risk. I think you'll see maybe more players with families to consider may not go, but then again, this is their livelihood. And at some point you gotta go back to it. So, boy, yes, always be a handful of guys who won't do it, but I think the majority will. And I think these events, you're going to see great fields, the majority of these events.
I agree. I think you're going to see great fields. These guys are competitors. They want to compete, and you want to get out and see what this whole new world, this new situation is going to be like so you can adapt. So if you miss the first 2 or 3 events, these other guys are adapting to what's going on, and you're sitting at home. I want to be out there learning to play without the crowd and with, and all the things that would be different. So later in the season, it's a little more normal for me and a little more I'm prepared and I know what to expect when the majors are there. And so I want to be as ready as possible. Plus, you've been sitting at home, you're chomping at the bit. You want to get out there and compete and see your buds. So I think there's going to be very, very strong fields.
I'll answer it this way, Brian. I'll look at me personally, and not that I've had this conversation, with my wife, but I personally would have no reservations about going to work to do it. Certainly, there's economic pressures probably in my thought process there, but with sanitizer, masks, and just being, frankly, I was cautious when I went to the Arnold Palmer Invitational. I had hand sanitizer. I was very cognizant of not touching anything in the airport. Anytime I did, I sanitized my hands, washed. And this is when we knew it was in America, but it wasn't as rampant. So I was aware of it and took as many precautions as I could and sanitized my hands as much as possible. So yeah. I would go. I guess my answer, I would go.
Yeah. No, I don't think it's. There's probably not a blanket statement for anybody. Everybody's situation is different. You mentioned could be money, economic pressure, could be tour status pressure, could be family pressure, could be location even too. I mean, where is the event? What are my travel logistics? And if you don't live, if you're not an American player, what if you live in Europe, or what if you live in Asia and you play the PGA Tour regularly? Like, what is even the travel restrictions going to be allowed here, right? I mean,
won't they have to quarantine for 14 days?
Yes, they do.
Yeah, right. So they got to come over early.
Correct. That's why they let them know now. That's why hey, here's the schedule. Plan accordingly to come back. And I would assume part of that plan, again, I don't know what has been communicated to the players in particular, but let's say you're Justin Rose and you're in the Bahamas where he resides. That's still out of the country. It's not over in the UK, but you've got to come back into the country. I would have to think you'd have to quarantine for 14 days.
Yeah.
But most of the guys, like Rory, is in Jupiter, right? I believe Rory McIlroy is in Jupiter, Florida. So the number 1 player in the world doesn't have to do that. John Rahm from Spain, he's in San Diego, right? So in the country.
Yeah.
If they're worried about flying, like most of these guys fly private, the top players, but other ones, hey, fire up the family truckster and drive. You may see that. More guys driving to events.
I was surprised. The only thing I was surprised about, and maybe they couldn't figure this out, I thought maybe they would have the first months of events closer to one another. It goes from Texas to South Carolina and then to Connecticut. I thought maybe they would say, hey, Texas is a state where we're getting government support to play. And I mean, let's face it, sometimes that's a part of it is, are you going to get support from the leaders that are in your region if you want to hold an event? I thought maybe they would say, hey, let's try the first 2 to 3 weeks in these courses in Texas. That way the travel logistics could be easier, but they obviously decided not to.
Well, I think it's just a guess. I think part of it is the tournament, the sponsors. I think, they're, where some of the money comes from to put these on. I think that's significant.
Yep.
For example, bigger, more prestigious events, right? The
Memorial
is not getting bumped. If anything's not getting bumped, it's the
right.
Memorial, right?
But there's, look at Valero. Valero Texas Open was in San Antonio. You could make the argument go from Colonial to San Antonio. But RBC had 2 tournaments canceled. They wanted to have 1. Just guessing again. So they said, let's do Hilton Head and not Canada in another country. Just,
I'm surprised they can put the schedule. I wonder if they had conversations with the states or the municipalities before they make this. Because, you might call New York State. They're like, no, you're not playing in June, or whatever. For any of those states in the Northeast where near Philly or the Mets in the metropolitan area anywhere, it'd be.
Well, the third event is the Travelers in Connecticut in that tri-state area. That's why.
Well, it's in Hartford. That's outskirts of Hartford. That is not New York City.
That's true. Yeah.
So
that could be in a lesser area than of.
Yeah. There's
definitely are. Yeah.
Yeah, and in the playoff events in Boston, like it rotates between New York and Boston, like it's a Liberty National last year, Boston, and really Providence, and like so. Yeah, I think where they are, and given what they can do. I mean, they're not. The tournaments aren't held in condominiums. I don't know. I'm not a medical expert, but you can do it. It seems to me if we believe we can play golf in quarantine and be distanced, I believe you could do a tournament the same way where players aren't using the locker room, right? I mean, they're not using player dining.
I think the physical act of playing golf is the easiest piece of this puzzle.
Right.
It's the travel logistics. It's the setup of the tournament itself. It's what are you going to do when they're done with their round? Do they have to come in somewhere? Like the physical act of them from hole 1 to hole 18 might be the easiest part.
Yeah, believe me, the tour is they're going to use every resource to protect their members and players. So there's going to be different protocols, I'm sure.
There'll be trunk slammers like the rest of us. Just get out of the car, pull the club out of the trunk.
That's correct.
The scoring table will get wiped down, between players, and and you can pull it off. Yeah,
I think you're right.
It'd be like running an event at your club because you don't have any of except for the media. You don't have any fans or anything like that, and it seems like you'd be able to.
Yep, I would agree. Okay, guys, this was fun. We'll do it again next week.
Yeah.
Hope everybody enjoyed our Tee to Green extra. For Kevin Sylvester, Jeff Meadis, I'm Brian Koziel. We'll talk to you next time right here on Tee to Green.